So there's this idea that we only use 10% of our brains. I think all of us have heard this before, and in fact it's so much a part of just normal culture that I don't think we even know when we first heard this. But somewhere, right now, in some part of the world, some biology teacher is telling her students that you only use 10% of your brain. In fact, it's so normal that there's even this movie that came out recently. I don't know if some of you saw it, Lucy. That's based basically on this concept. It's not the first movie. There was Unlimited before that. And it's replaying itself over and over again. It is an appealing idea for many reasons, but mainly because of the possibility that we could be so much more intelligent, creative, and even successful if we could just somehow harness that wasted 90% that's just sitting there waiting and untapped. So do you think it's true? Well, in 1997, I had an internship. I was a university student. I had an internship in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So I was a huge nerd back then, and I was really, and you know what, I love nerds, and I'm proud to be one, and I was very much into labor unions at the time. I went on to get a master's in labor rights, but this was the beginning of my interest in that subject. And for an internship, one of the things you can do in the U.S. is this program called Union Summer. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of it. But in Union Summer, you intern with a labor union in some part of the country, and you kind of follow them and shadow them around to see what they do. So we went on organizing campaigns. We helped with research and giving workers information. There was a strike, so we helped on the picket line and things like this. So it was based, I'm from the northeast corner of America, but Minneapolis is kind of in the middle. And I thought it would be a bit of an adventure as well. And so we stayed in Minnesota. We went all around kind of the whole middle of the country for different things. And it was a blast. It was a 6-week-long internship. And there was a large group of us that were from all over the country. So I got a chance to meet people that were from the other coast as well. There were 2 chaperones, Steve and Bill, who were taking time off for their normal union duties to kind of be our shepherds and for the 6 weeks. And they were wonderful, maybe a little bit old-fashioned compared to us troublemaking 20-year-olds, but they were wonderful and very welcoming and good teachers as well. So every once in a while, we would take a drive on this internship overnight because they had really laid out this intense agenda for us. Every day, we were practically in a new city. And sometimes we would ride overnight to reach the next destination. And this one particular night, we were going south from Minnesota. I promise this isn't a geography story, but it's important for this particular part that we were just heading south through a state called Tennessee. It's kind of in the middle of our country. And I can sleep in, and if anybody knows me, I can sleep in any situation at a moment's notice, which is great. A lot of people I know have trouble sleeping, but I can sleep whenever I decide that I want to sleep, which is very nice. So I would always tuck myself way in the back of the van. By the way, we had these 2 minivans that drove our clan everywhere. Steve was driving one and Bill was driving the other. And everywhere we went, these 2 vans would pull up. And we would take over the restaurant or take over the hotel or whatever it was. And I would always run to the van and just get out as far in the back as I could and spread out. But this one particular night, something held me up, probably the bathroom or something like that. And by the time I got to the van, there was only one seat that was available in Bill's van, which was my van, which was the passenger seat. Not that it wasn't a particularly nice seat, but maybe Bill was a little bit on the long-winded side. So you kind of knew that if you were going to get that seat, you wouldn't be doing much sleeping. And even though I'm a polite person, I'm also tired too. So there's always you're fighting, listening to him and also wanting to sleep. Most of them were already asleep before we even pulled out. But I'm in the passenger seat. And on this drive, it was going to be an all-night drive. And so we left around 11 o'clock at night, and we were just driving through to Tennessee for the following morning. And Bill was going on and on about his kids, where they were in the country, what they were doing. I'm sure they were doing really paying that much attention, but I'm sure they were doing lovely things. And I started to fall asleep. And every night when you're in bed and you're about to, or wherever you happen to be sleeping, and you're about to fall asleep, I don't know if it happens to you, but do you ever like catch yourself about to fall asleep? Your thoughts like start to get really crazy or something like that, and you ever have this one happen? Like you like sit up real quick or something like that, like a jolt of something comes through. It's like there's those moments when you can feel yourself slipping into something. So I can remember this like it was this afternoon. I was slouched in the seat. Bill is droning on about something, driving into the night. And I am starting to fall asleep. And my eyes are closed and everything is just sinking, okay? And then this thing happened that has never happened to me before or since. This incredible rush of like energy like surged through me, okay? And I like shot up in my seat, straight up. It wasn't this type of thing I was saying before about like when you feel like something's gonna hit you in the face when you're falling asleep. It was just this weird surge of energy. And I never felt like this, like all of my muscles were tense, And then I look over at Bill. Now, I'm in the driver's side, so in America it's like in reversed, so I look over to the left at Bill, and this is what I see. The best way I can describe it is like, now we have video, but before video there was these like celluloid reels of film, This is the best way I can describe it. There was a reel playing, a normal reel playing of Bill driving, what you would expect to normally see if you were to turn and look. Then there was another reel playing on top of that reel of Bill dead, okay? And slumped over to the side like this with like blood like all over the place, okay? Like all over him, all over the front. And then like now I'm just looking at the car, and then there's the windshield intact and normal, and then there's also the windshield shattered and blood sprayed all over this. I look down at me, think normal shirt, but also blood stained. Okay. For a second you think you must be asleep, and then you're really checking everything and all the things that you do to check whether you're really awake or asleep, and I'm awake. And I had never had anything like this happen. What a weird feeling. And after about 10 seconds of surveying everything from left to right, it just goes away. So I'm sitting there thinking, what does that mean? What am I supposed to do something? What is that? Are we about to get into an accident? This is what I was thinking, Are we about to get into an accident? And then I realized, yes, I think that this means that we're about to, I don't know why, nothing like this has ever happened before. I'm not a person who believes in ESP or anything like that, but I said to myself, I think this means we're about to get into an accident. And I think I should tell them. I think I should tell everybody in the van. So I look over at Bill, and now he's normal, just driving. And then I look in the back seat, and all of the kids are fast asleep, So I take a deep breath, and just when I'm about to wake them up, I stop. And you know what? And when I actually look back on it, it's one of the things I regret most in my life. That I was too embarrassed to say what I wanted to say. And because I kept thinking okay, we're not going to get into an accident. And then they're going to think, they're always going to remember that crazy guy who said that there was going to be an accident, But I knew we were going to. So why shouldn't I just risk some momentary embarrassment? And I just turned around and I started looking straight ahead again. And so this is what I decided to do, that we were going to get into an accident, but I'm going to really scan the horizon for the oncoming thing. Okay? in fact, now the vision thing, whatever that thing was, has happened about 30 seconds ago. So it's still clear. And one thing I do remember from it is that the driver's side window was like pierced. It wasn't like shattered, it was pierced. So I'm thinking, from being from Connecticut, I'm thinking there's a deer. A deer is going to run out onto the highway because we're on this desolate highway with no other cars, okay? Just Steve's van in front and us in the back. And I'm thinking, there's a deer that's going to run out. And I rehearsed this for the next 2 or 3 minutes. I rehearsed this move that I was going to do, which was the deer was going to come out and it was going to hit the car. And then I was going to grab the wheel from Bill and steer us to safety, you know. And I'll, just like the driving school driver does, like put their foot over there and like brake the van, you know. I had the whole thing planned out. And like Bill, of course, oblivious, just driving straight ahead. Little does he know I have this entire plan for how to save his life and to be the hero. And I know it seems funny, having said all of that, but we are driving, you know, and there's no one on the highway. And then next thing you know, Bill like starts to slow down. So I'm really like I feel like I have an eagle vision or something. I'm just like scanning the horizon for anything. Bill starts to slow down, and I said, "Why are you slowing down?" And he said, "I don't know. Steve slowed down, you know." So we pull over to the side of the highway, and Steve. Now it's like 3:30 or something like that in the morning. Steve comes back to our van, and he says to Bill, "Did you see that back there?" You know. And Bill's like, "No, what?" And he's like, "I don't know. On the other side of the highway, you have to imagine that there's a 2-lane highway, and then there's a big, these big highways, and there's this big divider between them. There's like grass, so you could, it wasn't like a concrete barrier or anything like that." He's like, "I don't know, but on the other side of the highway, I saw something weird, you know. Do you want to go back and check it out?" And Bill's like, "No, not really." But he's like, "Well, I guess we're the only ones here. Let's go." So Steve pulled into this grass thing and turned the car around to go the other direction. And we drove back about, 45 seconds or something like that. And there was this like little orange glow or something. And we started to drive closer to it. And the closer we got to it, the glow got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then before we realized it was a fire. It was something was on fire, but it was absolutely black. You could not see anything around this fire. But finally, when you got close enough to see the details, this is what we saw. A car was on fire, and there was an on-ramp. Okay, there was an on-ramp to the highway, and a tractor trailer, so it's one of these big things with the canister on it, without the can on it. So a tractor trailer with just the bed was foolishly parked just off of the on-ramp, and a car was coming onto the on-ramp and didn't see this. When it's completely night like that, you're not going to see something with its lights off. And the car had gone into the back of the thing, so like that. So, and then there were people like in the car, like screaming, you know, and so like we got out of the van, and then like nobody really knows what's going on, and I have to give some credit to some of the people that were in my van. They went into this burning car and pulled out the driver, and there were 2 people in the car, a driver and the passenger. And they pulled them out, and the driver was dead on the scene. But the passenger was alive, but happened to have 2 broken legs. We don't know anything about whether that passenger survived. But before we left the scene, I remember just looking back at the car, and the windshield was broken in the way that I remembered it. And I'm telling you, this haunted me for weeks afterward. And by haunted, I don't mean like every once in a while I thought about it. I was dwelling on it all day long for like 2 weeks, because I don't know what that meant. I don't know what that means. I was so confused. Like, was I shown something? What was supposed to happen? Was what happened supposed to happen? I don't know. Or was it maybe just a really specific coincidence, you know? Maybe maybe when traumatic things happen in the world, it's like a pebble being dropped in a lake or something like that. And it ripples out from where it happens, and maybe you can catch this. I really don't know. Maybe this type of thing is happening all the time, but we're just not receiving the signal in any kind of like recognizable way or something like that. Maybe it's possible that we can receive these feelings if the brain is in some kind of like specialized state or something like that. What if that special state of mind is that weird few moments between being awake and being asleep? I feel like everything with the brain is being studied, but this thing would actually be very difficult to study because those moments are just a few seconds. So, something traumatic happening just at those moments, I don't know. I'm just saying maybe it's possible that something special is available in those moments. I really don't know. I'm just trying to make sense out of something that makes no sense. So what happened that night, obviously, if I can talk about it this many years later with such clarity, obviously it bothered me, but it also really intrigued me. And so now you know why I'm interested in this well-known idea about whether we use just 10% of our brain capacity. For those of you that believe this 10% thing, I have some bad news. Functional MRI scans show that even to carry out extremely simple tasks, we use far more than 10% of our brain, like picking up this pen, far more than 10%. And after just the first few moments of being awake in the morning, we've used 100% of our brain, either directly or in support of our neurons. But yet the myth lives on, much to the delight of self-help gurus hoping to sell us seminars and books for the next several decades. So we use 100% of our brains already. Does that leave room for what happened to me that night in 1997? And if what happened to me can happen, why doesn't it happen more often? If anybody knows me, they know I love that Mars rover robot. Maybe it's like the Mars rover, that little robot scanning the surface of Mars right now. In a few years, this little robot will help to map every square inch of that planet, from where every mountain peak is to where every valley dips down. But even with this info, we might not be any closer to knowing the answers to the big questions, like whether there was once huge oceans or raging rivers on that planet. Or, of course, the biggest question of all, whether there was life in any recognizable form long before ours. In other words, we can measure and label everything that we see. But maybe the most fascinating dimensions of the world around us exist on a slightly deeper level, below the surface. Maybe the true nature of what this world is actually hidden in plain sight in the spaces in between. Thanks.